Your composition skills need to be better to take amazing landscape photography. Luckily for you, that's exactly what we're talking about in this video, so let's jump right in. What's up, y'all? It's Project Photography back with another video, and today, before we get started, make sure to follow all of my socials down in the description bar below, including a brand new TikTok that I just launched. But landscape compositions are probably one of the most important aspects of landscape photography because you can have amazing lighting, amazing editing, and even really good subject matters. But if you don't know how to create good compositions, then it's gonna be really hard to capture amazing landscape photography. So in this video, I'm gonna jump in and explain to you how I create my compositions and run through my thought process and so forth. And then after, I'm gonna talk about the secret to how to actually get consistently good landscape photography compositions. So let's jump right in and let's go right to the camera so I can show you exactly how to create those compositions. So let's first talk about what is a composition. A composition is essentially how you arrange all the elements in a photo. For me, the way I like to do it is I like to pick a main subject matter and then build around it. My main subject matter tends to be normally cliff sides, mountain peaks, and then I like to rearrange the elements in the photos in order to create a nice composition. So sometimes I'll add a foreground element or I'll add some curvature into the landscape by placing the shoreline in a certain way. For example, this image from Zion National Park has a ton of elements ranging from the mountain peaks in the background to the valley formations to even this river running through it. But my main subject matter I want to capture is this valley. The reason why is that it's the biggest thing there and has beautiful colors that I want to showcase. I composed the image in horizontal orientation since the valley is very wide and everything runs from left to right. I put the middle of the valley in the center so the image is nice and balanced, and move myself so the river runs up the middle to move the viewer's eyes from the bottom frame to the top. In essence, that is why I placed certain elements where I did. Now this can get extremely complicated when you're on shoot, which is why I tend to gravitate towards one subject matter and then build around it, trying to keep it as relatively simple as possible. But enough of me explaining, let's actually go behind the camera and I'll actually show you my thought process on how I create this composition for this photo. First of all, the main subject matter I really want to highlight is this rock formation here. I think it creates a really nice main subject matter, mainly because you can see the shoreline that runs up to it as well as the cliffside running from the bottom down. So I think it's just a really nice converging area where a lot of these different elements kind of meet. So as we go ahead and put our camera on the tripod, make sure to always have one, because having a tripod is crucial for getting that correct composition. I'm using a horizontal orientation mainly because I think everything moves from left to right, especially this valley here. And to me, the shoreline makes sense to have it in more of a horizontal orientation again, because we're starting from the corner here with the shoreline and moving it up. Everything kind of converges at that main subject matter. For me, I want to kind of have more of the foreground because I think that this element here, the shoreline, is way more pronounced and way more important to showcase than the sky. I think if we showcase too much of the sky, there's gonna be way too much dead space. And when crafting this, I also want to make sure that this cliff line here is more towards this top corner, mainly because I feel like there's a nice sense of symmetry with the shoreline starting here and the cliffside starting here. That's how I'd frame this composition. And then from there, I would just probably go to around f8 and then probably drop the shutter speed down. And because we're so far away from the water itself, I think more of a smoothed out effect, so probably like a 10-stop ND filter would make more sense for me here, just because we're not that close and so you wouldn't be able to see a lot of the water rushing in if I were to use a shorter shutter speed. So let's go with a 10-stop ND filter. Obviously adjusting my shutter speed so that it matches the 10-stop ND filter. So hopefully we're around, I guess we'll probably go to, let's probably go to a 10 second. And let's just see how that looks. So we'll go ahead and put the timer on for 5 seconds and then go ahead and capture it. And here is the final image. So that is it when it comes to me actually capturing landscape photography and compositions. Like I said, pretty simple, not that complex. I usually just find a main subject matter and then build around it. But let's talk about the secret to actually capturing the compositions really consistently. Let's talk about that back in my studio. All right, y'all, so we're now back in the studio and I'm gonna give you guys the secret to how I'm actually able to create landscape compositions very consistently. So for me, when it comes to creating these compositions, when I go out on location, I'm not actually critically thinking about, okay, that is gonna be my subject matter and these are gonna be the elements surrounding it. When I go there, I simply look at the subject matter that I want to shoot and then just start building around it unconsciously. I don't critically think about where I'm going to be placing things. I kind of just let my unconscious mind and my eyes kind of do the work for me. Like when I'm going, I can literally just see it. in terms of like how I'm going to frame it and so forth and all these other things. Now, this might not make a lot of sense, but I think once you've been doing landscape photography for quite some time, you almost develop a archive of images that you've captured, how you've captured them, and then you can easily translate those over into where you are in shooting in that moment. Because when it comes to landscape photography, you have so many possibilities of how you can frame a certain subject matter, and you have so many different elements you need to work with, and the compositions can become so complex and overwhelming that you want to almost take away your conscious thoughts out of it and let what your instincts tell you about a landscape do the work for you. And in order to get there, you have to have a lot of practice and a lot of experience, because like I said, I'm taking and building these compositions off of my archive of photos that I've already captured. And you can only get that archive of photos once you go out and take a lot of photos. And I've been doing this for 7 years, and it of course is never easy to create a really solid composition. But what I've noticed is over time, my work gets better and better and better because I'm able to have more and more and more photos in my archive of images that I've taken. And of course, when you're starting out, you will have to think consciously about how you are creating the composition. You do need to consciously think about, okay, what is my main subject matter? Should I use vertical versus horizontal? Should I include a foreground element? How should I frame this composition? You do have to think about that consciously, but you should hopefully get to a point where you can go up to a landscape, look at it, and just know immediately how you're gonna shoot it. That's where I am, at least in my landscape journey, but I know for a lot of people, it's gonna be something you have to develop and curate over time. But you don't get to that place without shooting a lot of photos, and honestly, sometimes they are just going to be bad compositions, and that even happens to me, because they're not always gonna be perfect. But you can only get to the really good photos when you take the bad ones, and when you're able to take photos that aren't necessarily the best. You have to go through that point in order to take good photos, because you can only unconsciously create those compositions when you have more experience. And we can't be afraid to mess up and take bad photos, because that's just a part of photography, and that's okay. And honestly, when it comes to compositions, there really is no magical rule, because I feel like everyone's like, oh yeah, use the rule of thirds or use whatever other composition hack you have, but in reality, no landscapes are the same. When you go to a landscape, it's a fresh new experience every single time, and you have to use your unconscious mind and your experience in order to craft the compositions for you. And you shouldn't have to be thinking and meticulously putting elements where they are, because you're consciously thinking about it. And you really want to get to the place where you're unconsciously thinking about it. I know this is a really confusing and might not make sense at the moment, but honestly, I can't describe it any other way. That's how I've literally been taking photos for the past 7 years. I go to a landscape and I see a main subject matter I like, and my unconscious mind kind of just creates the photos for me. So if you want to get to that place, you have to shoot a lot though. So just keep going out, keep shooting, practice your compositions. For now, I would consciously think about, okay, what is my main subject matter and what are the elements around it that I can build to create a really good composition. And over time, if you have more photos in your archive, then you could be able to reference them, kind of subconsciously, and create the compositions that you want to. So go out there and keep on shooting. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for experiencing the world with me today. Please feel free to rate, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one.